Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with some more Esoterica / ancient lore because this one is going to fit into both boxes. We are continuing our exploration of the secret of the golden flower. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points of interest that are brought to light by the text. It's not the format for everybody, but some people seem to find enjoyment in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above, in the box down below, along with the original source material so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I stand in the particular places that I do. A particular note again today are going to be the Infinite Integrations playlist and the Secret of the Golden Flower playlist. If you have not been through either one of those, you should definitely check that out. This will more than likely be a level of responsibility video, and if you do not understand what that means, you definitely need to go and check out those two playlists. With that being said, we are now going to dive into the text and continue our exploration of the Secret of the Golden Flower in Chapter 6, Authenticating Experiences of Turning the Light Around. There are many authenticating experiences that cannot be undergone responsibly by people with small faculties and small capacities. Yes, indeed. Talk about throwing shade off the top. You must will the liberation of all beings. You cannot handle attainment with a careless or arrogant attitude. Once again, I am going to point you back to one of my videos. I understand that seems like it is self-serving. It is not. It is so that you have a firm grasp of what I am saying. I know that y'all aren't going back and watching the video, despite the fact that I pointed out to you time and time and time again. I get the analytics. I see there are many more people that want to be involved in the manipulation of the energy than want to understand the mechanics and the reasoning behind what will happen when you do so. Don't be one of those people. Go back and watch the video. If you watch the entire thing, I might make a penny. It's not about monetary gain. It is about making sure that you will be liberated, that you can handle the attainment without a careless or arrogant attitude. I understand that I can come off a little bit arrogant as I am talking. I promise you that again is not the case. I consider myself one of the lowest forms of life, and so therefore I do not have the aspirations to be prideful. I wish everyone to get this information freely and clearly and be able to use it to the best of their ability. I want you to outstrip me. That is a very real thing. Go back and watch the 8 Laws of Creation. It is an important video. When there is uninterrupted continuity in quiet, the spirit and feelings are joyful and happy, as if one were intoxicated or in a bath. This is called positive harmony pervading the body, its golden efflorescence suddenly blooming. That is true. Once myriad pipes are all silent and the bright moon is mid-sky, you feel the whole earth as a realm of light. This is the opening up of the luminosity that is the substance of the mind, the proper release of the golden flower. I described it in the last video as an overwhelming light, and that is true. You can sit in a dark room, and when this happens, it will be a light that appears to you so bright that it is painful, right? Until you can learn to clear the light and align it in the correct directions and to make sure that it is doing the right thing. It is an overwhelming experience. It can be painful. It can be discouraging. The bright moon in the mid-sky, I'm assuming, is the clearing of the energy so that the light is harmonized. That is the purpose. I haven't seen them talk about myriad pipes or the bright moon in the mid-sky, so I have to assume that that's what they mean, but I'm assuming that because of what happens. Once the whole body is filled completely, you do not fear wind or frost. That there is a separation that happens. When you meet things that make people feel desolate in facing them, your vital spirit shines even brighter. The house is built of yellow gold. The terrace is white jade. The rotten things of the world you bring to life with a puff of true energy. Red blood becomes milk. The physical body is all gold and jewels. This is the great stabilization of the golden flower. This is the clearing of the field. This is the willful control of the emanations of the light. Right? The house is built of yellow gold. When you see the light to begin with, it is an overwhelming gold. The house will completely fill up with it. That is true. The terrace is white jade that is beginning to maintain the control of it. It is not meant to be entirely white. There is a balance between the white and the black that needs to happen. That can come on a little longer. The rotten things of the world you bring to life with a puff of true energy is very real. If you are harvesting animosity in your heart, it will be made manifest, even without your conscious direction. If you're holding jealousy in your heart, it will be made manifest, even without your conscious direction. Make sure that you are spending the time to go through and clear these things. Make sure that you do not harbor resentment against your brother before you go into a prayer. Christ is not the only one that told you that. And that is the great stabilization of the golden flower. Now, this red blood becomes milk. I'm assuming that that is like metaphorical, of course, but like you can see veins or whatever through your eyes. It seems a little bit red, being able to change that into white, but I am extrapolating there. I am just like pulling that wildly out of my butt. I don't really know what they're talking about in entirety there, and that's fine. We have different viewpoints. The rest of this I do, right? The rotten things you can bring to life, that is a real thing. The physical body being all gold and jewels, that also is a real thing. Kind of. Right? It is, you have all of the pieces, you need to fill them with the light, and I'm assuming that's got part of that to do with that too. Again, this was not described very well, if at all, and so, but this great stabilization of the golden flower, that is the goal of the thing, right? That is what you are supposed to do. That is the clearing of the field, where it all becomes balanced, not necessarily all golden or all white, but balanced. You will understand when you begin doing this. The first stage corresponds to the visualization scriptures, technical symbols of the setting sun, the great body of water, and the trees in rows. The setting of the sun stands for setting up the foundation in the undifferentiated. This is the infinite. Higher good is like water, flawlessly pure. This is the ultimate. The master is the ruler that produces movement, and since movement is symbolized by wood, it is represented by trees in a row. The rows are in sevens, which stands for the light of the 7 openings of the heart. We have talked about the 7, right? 7, which is 8. There are 7 internal and 1 external chakras that you have access to. When you can align the 7 internals, then you can affect the 1 external. It is not a process that will happen overnight. It is a process that requires time. You have to learn to set the foundation. You're visualizing things is not necessarily part of it. It can be. We've talked about that before, right? You can do all of this without the ability to visualize anything. If you are trying to visualize too hard, you will pull in what you want. It doesn't mean that it's actually happening. You can, most of you, sit here and close your eyes and visualize the setting of the sun. It doesn't mean that you've done anything other than visualize that. This is a symbol of something that you are doing. It is the clearing of the field. It is the directing of the energies, right? The 7 trees here are the 7 chakras. I'm going to assume they are points of light. They have their own color designations. They have their own movements, and you are meant to amplify those movements. You are meant to go to your base, clear the field, turn it red, and make sure that it is moving in a clockwise manner, as if you were looking forward. It is spinning clockwise within you. You move up to the next one, you clear the field, you turn it orange, and you make sure it is moving in a counterclockwise fashion. You do this for all 7 of them repeatedly until you can get to the mastery of the outer one. The setting of the sun stands for setting up the foundation in the undifferentiated. That is the clearing of the field. That is the infinite. Higher good is like water. It is flawlessly pure. That is the bright, golden, overpowering light that we were discussing about. That is the ultimate. That is the white, penetrative, masculine power that comes from above. The master is the ruler that produces movement, and since movement is symbolized by wood, it is represented by trees in a row. That is a visualization exercise. It is not necessary for the completion of the task. Doing the 7-step process to ensure that your chakras are aligned is what he is talking about. Take the time to do that. That involves the penetrative energy and the grounding energy. If you are only using one of the energies, you are doing it wrong. There's an energy to pull up and an energy to pull down. You need to be doing both. The second stage begins from the foundation. At this point, the whole earth becomes a jewel, ground of ice crystals. The light gradually solidifies. Therefore, a great terrace follows. As for the Buddha on the terrace of enlightenment, once the golden essence has become manifest, what is it if not Buddha? Buddha is the gold immortal, the great awareness. This is just the authenticating experience of the major stage. We have talked already about the light. There will be an overwhelming golden light. It will clear, it will clarify if you are spending the time to do so. If you are taking the willing steps to ensure that you are clearing your emotions, right? Not holding on to resentment or anger or anything, clearing those. Going into your meditative practice, allowing it to show up. This crystallization, what they call crystallization here, is not it actually becoming something that you can put your physical hands on, but it is something that you can manipulate. The pattern that appears for me in the clearing of is the flower of life, right? You can't really tell, but I have Metatron's cube right above this picture right here. And that is the masculine expression of the flower of life in part. The feminine involves the curves. It is the Vesca Pisces, kind of looks like private parts. And it has several attachments that make it look like there are several Vesca Pisces, and they look like a flower. That is the unfolding of the flower of life. That is the feminine expression of that. By that we mean the feminine involves curves. The masculine involves sharp lines and angles. And that's how you can differentiate in experientiality the difference between the masculine and the feminine. Like this phone has hard curves, right? Now, this is a little bit curved, and so it's a little bit iffy, but it's hard lines and a 90-degree angle, and it's just softened for the effectiveness of it. This is a masculine thing. It is something that is created. The dogs, you won't find a single solid rigid line upon them. On you won't find the same thing. Like even your arm held straight out has curves and bends to it. That is a feminine expression. Generally speaking, you will not find the masculine expressed in nature almost exclusively. Like you do see, sometimes you will see like the Bimini Road where there are sharp lines and angles, but for the most part, even mountains or rivers or rocks or whatever, if it is a natural thing that has not been made by man, it's generally curved. That is because it is the balance between the masculine and feminine that is created it, and the feminine is more dominant. The masculine is the creative force. The feminine is what generates that masculine force into something useful. And so the crystallization of this light forms that pattern for me. Right? Not Metatron's cube, but the flower of life. It is soft. It has curves. It is an unfolding that is continuously happening. If you focus on any one particular part of it, it just moves, and you get the life, the flower of life, starting from a different emanation point. That to me is what is being described as the solidifying. The light gradually solidifies. The field clears. It is no longer this random, jumbled light wave of movement and overpoweringness. The light becomes bearable. You can actually look into it without physical pain. And you can see the patterns that are contained therein. For me, those patterns are the flower of life. They may not be for you, and I want to make that clear. Just because it is my experience does not mean that it necessarily has to be yours. I am relaying my experiences so that you can relate to them if something similar happens. It may not be exactly the same. You might see Metatron's cube and not the flower of life. It just depends on where you are in your particular healing stage. Now, Buddha here is being referenced as the one, right? It is not necessarily talking about the dude that sat underneath the fig tree. It is talking about what he was teaching, which is the oneness of all things. There are 3 authenticating experiences that can be considered now. One is when you are sitting and the spirit enters into a state of openness. And then when you hear people talking, it is as though from far away. But everything is clearly understood, even though all sounds coming in are like echoes in a valley. That is a real thing. Remember I told you, I think it was the last video, but you can hear the wind blowing through the trees. You can hear the cars moving down the road, but it is as if it is happening to someone else. It's like you are almost removed from yourself. Now, I can pull myself out of my body. I can enter into my divine and look at myself from an outside state. That is more of an experienced thing, right? And by experienced, I don't mean something you have experienced, but something that you gain experience in. You can probably do it straight off the top, but it can be extremely disconcerting. It can be a point of fearfulness for some people. It also opens you up to things. If you are vacating the vessel, there is a chance that something else might take up habitation. There are steps and procedures that you need to make sure are in place before you do anything involving leaving your corporeal body. That's not meditation. That is the intentional astral projection. That is the going forth to read elsewhere. If you are removing your consciousness from your physical corporality, it has dangers that you need to accommodate for. The spirit of openness is different, right? It is you were retreating within yourself or just slightly behind yourself to the point where you are disconnected from self, but not from the world. You are still capable of hearing and seeing and doing all of the things, but they do not affect you in the same way. It is as if you are listening to words from the next room over with the door closed. You can hear them. You can understand that there are words. Sometimes you may even understand the words, but they are not even really directed at you. That's what's being said here. All you have heard, you have never heard anything yourself. This is the spirit in a state of openness. It can be experienced by oneself at any time. That is also the retreating within that I talk about, the unfocusing of the mind and the eyes, and with retreating within yourself, withdrawing into your own consciousness, right? That is the walking in the oneness, right? Can be experienced at any time, is walking in the oneness. That is the comprehension of all things and the slight removal of self from those things. Another experience is when in the midst of the quiet, the light of the eyes blazes up, filling one's presence with light. It is like opening the eyes in a cloud. There is no way to look for one's body. This is the empty room producing light. Inside and outside are permeated with light. Auspicious signs hover in stillness. We've already talked about the light, right? This is the ways to know that you're on the right path, is what we're getting from this. If you are doing these things and these things happen, then you are probably doing it in the correct way. The light of the eyes blazing up, filling one's presence with light, that is the painful light that I was talking about. It becomes less painful the more experienced you become with it, but at the beginning it will be an overwhelming, overpowering thing. You will think you are doing something wrong. It will seem as though there is something wrong. There's not. You are doing exactly what you are supposed to be doing. Relax. Keep up with your breathing. Keep up with the distractions of yourself and allow the light to be. Before you even try to mess with anything, just let it be. Let it fill you. Let it overwhelm. And then it will subdue. It will become something that is malleable. It will crystallize, so to speak. Yet another experience is when in the midst of quiet, the energy of the physical body becomes like silk or jade. That's pretty smooth, right? While sitting, if you don't stop it, the energy will soar buoyantly upward. This is the spirit returning to the highest heaven. Eventually, after a long time, it is thereby possible to ascend. Yes, that is part of the separation process. That is part of the moving yourself up and down your stack. You can do the same movement outside of yourself. You can do astral projection. You can see these things over there. That is something that you should do very cautiously. The things inside of you and the inside of your aura, even like if you pull yourself out of your body and you're sitting back here, which is where I spend most of my time outside of my body, but you are still within the bounds of the divine chakra, you don't have to worry about whether or not something is going to occupy you. You are still occupying you. It is when I am going to send myself to the next city over, then there is the possibility of being taken. That is where the precautions need to be laid. If you are within your energy, you don't have to worry about that. If you are working in your stack, you're not going to have to worry about that. If you are working just outside of yourself, you're not going to have to worry about that. It is the external projection that is the problem. The spirit returning to the highest heavens, that is part of this, right? That is you moving your stack away from yourself. And you can go and explore the astral realms. It is a possibility, right? It is not one that I play in. I am beginning to play in that. I am beginning to set the boundaries necessary for that. I am only learning, right? I tell you all of the time, I am not a master in these things. I am an adept at best. Someone who can do the things, who can explain them to you, who has had the experiential attainment. But I can't give you my experience. I can only discuss it with you. I am not a master. I do not claim to be able to go and visualize the next city over. I don't play with that, right? I am very much keeping me within me until I am sure that me is going to return to me. Once again, this is something that you don't have to listen to me on. It is something that you probably should, but I am not your master. I am simply a teacher of things. Other people teach these things too. I am just trying to show it in a way that I have experienced. These three experiences can be verified now, but it is still not possible to explain them thoroughly. People experience higher things individually, according to their faculties and capacities. This is what stopping and seeing calls the emerging manifestations of roots of good. These things are like when people drink water and know for themselves whether it is cool or warm. It is necessary for you to attain faith on your own. Only then is the true primal unified energy present. We just talked about that. If you find the unified energy yourself in authenticating experience, the elixir immediately crystallizes. This is a grain of reality. A grain and then another grain from vagueness to clarity. This refers to the primal grain that builds up through time. There is also the total primal grain, which is measureless. Each grain has a grain's power. This requires individual fortitude above all. This comes through experience, right? If you find the unified energy yourself in authenticating experience, so these things that we have just listed do happen to you, you understand what we are talking about now, then that is a grain. You have seized a small measure of control just by identifying that there is a measure of control that can be seized. It's going to take a lot more experience to do the things you want in your life. Before you try seizing your timeline, you should definitely make sure that your alignments are correct. Make sure that you have many of these grains. Not because it's necessarily a bad thing, but it can have bad repercussions. 7. The living method of turning the light around. As you go along, practicing turning the light around, you need not give up your normal occupation. An ancient said, when matters come up, one should respond. When things come up, one should discern. If you manage affairs with accurate mindfulness, then the light is not overcome by things. So it will do to repeat this formless turning around of the light time and time again. If you can look back again and again into the source of mind, whatever you are doing, not sticking to any image of person or self at all, then this is turning the light around wherever you are. This is the finest practice. That is walking in the oneness. Right? I'm pretty sure we've already discussed that in this video. I get distracted sometimes and I forget what we talk about in each one, right? I do these back to back sometimes. Like I try and do 2 hours a day. So this is the second video today, and it may have been in the first one that we talked about this. Walking in the oneness is while you are doing your everyday tasks, maintaining a meditative posture. That doesn't mean sitting with your legs crossed and going on with the sound of electromagnetic harmonics of the universe. What it means is that you are aware that you can meditate and move. You can, while you're washing dishes, flip through TikTok and listen to YouTube or have the TV on or the radio. Or you can sit in mindfulness while you're washing the dishes. The effect on your life will be different. Whichever one you're doing. I walk in the oneness a lot. I do it on my morning walks every day. But I do it throughout the day regardless. If I am just sitting here and I've got 10 or 15 minutes, I'll spend it in meditation. But that doesn't mean that I am on, right? It is walking in the oneness. It is understanding these things are happening and even retreating within my mind and allowing the things to happen. It is part of the creative process. If you have written a book or a song or a poem or you have created art, a large part of that is external from you. You are merely channeling something through you. Most artists will tell you that. Yes, there is skill involved. There is finally honing your craft to be able to do the best. But once you have honed your craft, you can do it really without thinking about it. If you have ever been in the zone, right? You're at work and you're doing whatever. I used to do packaging for Honeywell. We did refrigerant. We filled like little propane tanks with refrigerant. The process of that is monotonous. It is something that you can repeat really without even thinking about it. It just clamp the thing, start the button, tighten the valve, unclamp it. That process you can do really without thinking about it. You get in a zone. That zone is the meditative walking in the oneness. If you've been in sports and you know that this play is going to go exactly right, and then it goes exactly the way that you want it to, and you are a little bit disconnected from it, you're in that zone. That zone is walking in the oneness. Just something you probably don't recognize yet. Once you can learn to recognize that meditative state that is not you going into active meditation, but rather the awareness of all these things and where you stand in accordance with all of these things, and allowing whatever it is that you are doing to happen with your mind not fully engaged. That is walking in the oneness, right? That is what he is talking about here. If you can look back again and again into the source of mind, whatever you are doing, not sticking to any image of person or self at all, this is turning the light around wherever you are. This is the finest practice. That is the walking in the oneness. In the early morning, if you can clear all objects from your mind and sit quietly for 1 or 2 hours, that is best. Whenever you are engaged in work or dealing with people, just use this looking back technique and there will be no interruption. If you practice in this way for 1, 2, or 3 months, the realized ones in heaven will surely come to attest to your experience. There may be visitations. Be prepared for that. Chapter 8. The Secret of Freedom. Jade-like purity has left a secret of freedom in the lower world. Congeal the spirit in the layer of energy, and you'll suddenly see white snow flying in midsummer, the sun blazing in the water at midnight, going along harmoniously. You roam in the heavens, then return to absorb the virtues of the receptive. This is the meditative practice, right? This is a reiteration of the things that we have been learning through. The secret of freedom: congeal the spirit in the layer of energy, that is the onboarding of the energy, right? It comes through the top and through the bottom, and then it congeals, right? One place of congealment is in the mind. It is your third eye, is where your soul resides. And the other place of congealment is in your sacral area, your regenerative creative source, right? You get it from the top and the bottom, and it gets here, and you have to direct it consciously from there. You can direct it into other places. The throat is a magnifier. The solar plexus is a magnifier. When you feed that energy intentionally into the next step, it is amplified. When you speak it aloud, you are creating. You are speaking into existence the things you wish to be. If you are speaking positive things into your life, you will create positive things. If you are speaking negative things into your life, you are creating negative things. That is using the energy that has congealed. When you see it and speak it, you are using it. The white snow flying in summer, the sun blazing in the water at midnight, that is the light appearing and you being able to manipulate it. There is another line: a mystery within a mystery. The homeland of nothing whatsoever is the true abode. The depths of the mystery are all contained in a single measured verse. That is the nothingness that is the oneness of all things. Everything is matter, right? Everything is energy. Energy is stored as matter. We are energy. This corporeal being, entirely energy. Once you are done with it, they can light it on fire and it will give off heat. It's a little bit hard to do because of the amount of fluids, right? There are pyres, however. That is energy. This phone, I use it all the time, is energy. These glasses, energy. It's energy stored, right? It is not kinetic energy. It is potential energy. You can change it from one form to another, but it is merely energy. Everything is that energy. If you can remove yourself from the all into the all that is, all things, but yet nothing at the same time, that's what it's talking about, right? It is this separation of the soul from the corporeal. The homeland of nothing whatsoever is the true abode. That's where you're going to return when we're done, right? The soul is eternal. It was somewheres prior to being here. It will be somewheres after we are done here. That something is the all that is nothing. That is all things. So, this is absolutely true. The homeland of nothing whatsoever is the true abode. That is where you are meant to return. It is where you have come from. Now you are here voluntarily in this 5D space in order to accomplish a myriad of tasks, to learn a lot of lessons, and so you are meant to be engaged here, not living for the then, not worrying about the then. Be here now and in control and mastery now, but be aware of those, right? that there is a nothingness that you will return to, and that nothingness is all things. The essence of the Great Way is to act purposefully, without striving. Because of non-striving, one does not cling to local conventions, forms, or images. But because of not striving, yet acting purposefully, one does not fall into indifferent emptiness, dead voidness. You are meant to do things. You should be earnestly and honestly engaged in doing things. You should have goals and desires. There are things that you want in your life. But you should not be so attached to those things that you ignore the things that are. Right? You should not be so focused on your future that you ignore your present or even your past. You should not be so focused on your past that you ignore your present or even your future. You are meant to be here, and you are meant to take every step that you can here, but you're not supposed to overly concern yourself, right? You need direction. You need goals. That is part of life. If you do not have a direction and a goal, that is where anxiety is going to come from. So make your goals, make your plans, but understand that those plans are like the vapors in the wind. It is like smoke in your hand. You can try to grab it, but it's not going to be there. Keep your focus on it. Try to manifest it in your life. But don't do so to the exclusion of things. That is the striving, right? Trying to force something to happen when it's not supposed to. When it's like if the door closes, there's probably a reason for it. And it may not be a door that opens. It may be a window. It may be nothing. You may be stuck in the hallway for a while. If you try to force the door open when it is not meant to be open, that is striving. And there may be something on the door that is not there for you. Pushing where there should be submission is striving. That doesn't mean that you don't have goals. It doesn't mean that you do not have tasks. It does not mean that you do not have aspirations. It means that you take into accommodation the fact that sometimes your plan is not the plan. And so be a little bit flexible with it. It may not manifest in exactly the way that you envisioned it. Learn to recognize the manifestations that you did not necessarily fully envision as still being manifestations that happen. I pray for things all of the time, and they come true. Like things are happening in the wide world that I have prayed for. It may not be in exactly the way that I wanted. Like I asked for the censorship to be removed and for there to be accountability on these social media sites. I was talking about YouTube because that is where I spend most of my time. But we got it in Twitter, right? That happened, and it has affected YouTube. You may not see it yet, but it has. It has affected the other sites as well. Learn to identify the minor fulfillments that are happening, just not in the way that you see them. Sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes what you desire is contrary to the plan. Right? Something is there for you, something for your betterment and not for your detriment. And you may be trying to force the thing that is for your worse instead of the thing that is for your better. Try not to force it. Try to allow it to happen. Ask for it, absolutely. Invest your energy in it, absolutely. But do not be so disappointed when it takes a different form. Do not fall into indifferent emptiness, dead voidness. The function is all in the center, but the mechanism is all in the two eyes. The two eyes are the handle of the stars which manage creation and operates yin and yang. That is in part true. We just talked about that. You receive the information and you amplify it. That goes through the third eye, which is here symbolized by the two eyes, right? You are emitting from your eyes light. That light is the light of creation. You commingle that light with the light that is external from you, and that is how manifestation happens, but it is not entirely in the two eyes. The heart is the center. The function is all in the center. Yes. The mechanism is not all in the two eyes. That is where they're getting it wrong a little bit. The eyes are part of it. They are one of the directional devices, right? You have the receptive devices at the top and the bottom, the base and the crown. You have the directional devices, which is the third eye and the sacral. You have the amplification devices, which is your throat and your solar plexus. And then you have the function center. The function center takes what you are doing here and combines them into what you are projecting into the world. Yes, you are speaking. Yes, you are visioning. But you are also desiring, right? You are also hungering for these things. It is the conscious melding of the upper and the lower, which is as above, so below. It is not as above in the cosmos, so here on earth, although that is true too, right? To a different scale. What is meant by as above, so below is you coming into balance between your lower desires and your upper desires and melding them into the middle. As above, so below, into reality it shall go. The major medicinal ingredient, beginning to end, is only the metal in the middle of the primary water, i.e., the lead in the region of water. The lead in the region of water, I don't know, that might be lead. They used to put lead into water to make it taste better. The preceding talk of turning the light around points out a method for beginners to control the inside from outside, thus helping them to attain independence. Right, this is a reiteration. The metal in the middle of the primary water, right, the primary water being the essence of all that is, you are the metal. You are the force in the middle. You lead that through your heart. What you project out of your heart into your divine aura is the things that will become. What you speak into your aura is what becomes. What you envision into your aura is what becomes. The outer aura, or outer chakra, is your visible aura to other people. It is the part that people can see, that can be affected by. It begins at the end of your palm when it is extended like this, not like that, but like this. It is extended outward from there. And how far out depends on you, but it surrounds you in a perfect sphere. So if you stick your hand out like this, it's right there too. If you go directly behind you, it is right there too. It is around you in a full sphere, and it emanates from you. But it is fed by the above and the below through the heart. It returns, right? It is a toroid. You are expressing it from your heart, and it cycles back into the divine or into the crown and back into the base. It is a feedback loop. It is a very real thing. It also emanates from the top and the bottom and feeds back into your heart and your various chakras. All of them emanate and receive. That can be a little bit hard for some people to understand too. Every single point does both. It gives out and it receives back. Your direction of that is the important part. This is for middling and lesser people cultivating the lower two passes in order to penetrate the upper pass. Now, as the way gradually becomes clear and mastery of the device gradually matures, heaven does not begrudge the way, but directly divulges the unsurpassed doctrine. Keep it confidential and work it out. I'm not necessarily keeping it confidential, am I? The lower two passes is the bottom, right? To penetrate into the upper pass, I don't believe that they had the full understanding that I do. And I know that sounds a little bit heady, right? It sounds a little bit prideful. The things that I talk about have been directly revealed to me. The 7 and the 8, that's been directly revealed. The 3 into 1, that's been directly revealed. The 3 is the Trinity of the body, the soul, and the spirit, but it is also the lower, the upper, and the middle. It is the blending of these three, the body, the soul, and the spirit. The spirit is the power that enables it to become. As the way becomes clear and mastery of the devices gradually matures, heaven does not begrudge the way, but directly divulges the unsurpassed doctrine. There are things that I can tell you. There are things that I cannot tell you. I can relay my experiences to you. I cannot give them to you. And there are things that I have to keep confidential. There are not many of them. One of them is the process of the initiation to the Order of Melchizedek. One of them is the identifier of others in that order. But outside of that, most of this I have been given leave to talk to you about. The movement of the energies, it's a little bit too much for some people, but it is a real thing. It really happens. You do it whether you realize it or not. You are creating the reality that you live in. So I do not keep what they keep it confidential, and except in very, very specific instances where I have been expressly denied the ability to relay them to you. Turning the light around is only the general term. With each level of progress in practice, the efflorescence of the light increases in magnitude, and the method of turning around becomes subtler. Previously, one controlled the inside from the outside. Now one abides in the center and controls the outside. Now before, the assistant administered for the master. Now one promulgates policy in service of the master. There has been manifestly a great reversal. This is the direction of the energy that we were just talking about, as above, so below. The turning of the energy, right? When you first begin, you don't have control. You are merely aware. Through the process of practice, right? Prayer, fasting, and meditation, you get the control. At first, you are outside of it, looking at it happen. And then you get to be the one controlling it. You get to consciously take in the information, consciously make the decisions, consciously speak them aloud, and consciously feed them into your heart. And it's the same for the path up. The being in the center, one abides in the center and controls the outside, is the control of the 8th chakra. It is where manifestation actually happens. If you stick your hand out straight in front of you, when you are speaking your manifestation, you don't want to speak past your hand. You want to speak about midway, just past your elbow. That's where you want to place whatever it is that you want to manifest. That allows the spirit to do what it needs to do, because now it is external from you. It has been placed into the realm of becoming. You do that through your visualization exercises, through your speaking, through your desiring, through your recognizing of those desires, of the feeding of the hunger of yourself. All of these things allow you to take control. Then you get to create intentionally the things that you want. Until you have done that, you are creating unintentionally the things that are there, whether you really want them or not. That's why I am such a big advocate of dispensing this information as freely as possible, because the more people who can actually intend to create things, the less we will see the unintentional creations. When you want to enter quietude, first tune and concentrate body and mind so that they are free and peaceful. Let go of all objects so that nothing whatsoever hangs on your mind, and the celestial mind takes its rightful place in this center. After that, lower your eyelids and gaze inward at the chamber of water. Where the light reaches, true positive energy comes forth in response. That is the retreating within that I'm talking about. Fire is yang outside and yin inside. So it is in substance the creative, with one yin inside ruling it, arousing mind according to things, going along out into habitual routines. Now, when you turn the light around to shine inward, the mind is not aroused by things. Negative energy then stops, and the flower of light radiates a concentrated glow, which is pure positive energy. Part of this process is learning to take that energy and to ground it, right? So That is the negative process. The flow from negative to positive is the way that it really works. But correlates inevitably associate. There's one of the laws of creation for you. So the positivity in water leaps up, whereupon it is not the positivity in water, but the positivity in the creative itself, responding to the positivity in the creative. Once the two things meet, they join inextricably. The living movement of creative energy, now coming, now going, now floating, now sinking. In the basic chamber, in oneself, there is an ungraspable sense of vast space, beyond measure, and the whole body feels wondrously light and buoyant. This is what is called clouds filling the 1,000 mountains. And that is true, right? Like, we've already talked about this part, so I'm not going to hammer it as hard, but it is the light filling you up. It is the melding of the internal light with the external light that is the part of creation. That is what you're placing, right? You are directing the energy into the desire of what you want through the heart and then placing it into the divine. And it does. It feels wondrously light. You feel buoyant. You feel an exuberance. It is like, wow, that really happens. Next, the coming and going is traceless. The floating and sinking are indiscernible. The channels are stilled. Energy stops. This is true intercourse. This is what is called the moon steeped in myriad waters. When the celestial mind first stirs in the midst of that utter darkness of the unknown, this is the return of the initial positive energy. This is living midnight. So what transpires at this point should be explained in detail. Ordinarily, once people let their eyes and ears pursue things, they get stirred up, only to stop when things are gone. This activity and rest are all subjects, but the sovereign ruler becomes their slave. This is always living with ghosts. Now, if in all activity and rest you abide in heaven while in the midst of humanity, the sovereign is then the real human being. When it moves, you move with it. The movement is the root of heaven. When it is at rest, you rest with it. The rest is in the moon cavern. If the celestial mind keeps still and you miss the right timing in action, then that is an error of weakness. If you act in response to it after the celestial mind has acted, this is an error of staleness. Once the celestial mind stirs, then use pure attention to raise it up to the chamber of the creative, and with the light of spirit focused on the crown of the head to guide it. This is acting in time. Taking timely action, right? Not letting the moment pass, whatever the moment may happen to be. It is difficult often to recognize the moment. It takes practice to do so. When the celestial mind has risen to the peak of the creative, it floats upward of its own accord, then suddenly verges on utter quiescence. Immediately use pure attention to conduct it into the yellow court, as the light of the eyes is focused on the spiritual room in the center. This is what I call the jumper cables, right? Now, this is using an upper-only strategy. I don't. I use the upper and the lower. We talk about the above and the below. You have to meld these things together, right? But it's talking about the melding of these things. Whenever you, when the celestial mind has risen to the peak of the creative, when you have figured out what it is that you wish to create, it floats upward of its own accord, and then suddenly verges on utter quiescence. Immediately use pure attention to conduct it into the yellow court. This is the part that I call putting the jumper cables on, right? You are connecting these energy centers with each other using jumper cables. That's my analogy for it, right? You directly connect the two together, and you can jump from the mind all the way down to the sacral. Those two are the parts where you desire. That is the creative. The next part, the yellow cord, it's literally represented by yellow in your solar plexus. And your throat is represented by blue, and that's okay. But that is the next step, and you need to connect those. And then you connect them both to the heart, together and separately at the same time. So it's a weird thing to explain, I guess, but like you are connecting the desires to the amplifiers and then the amplifiers to the heart, so that the flow of the energy goes out of the heart into the creative, right? The spiritual room in the center is the heart, and that is where the actual desire becomes, right? You feed it into the divine, and then the divine turns it into reality. Once about to enter utter quiescence, not a single thought is born. When gazing inward, suddenly one forgets the gazing. At that time, body and mind are in a great state of freedom, in a state of great freedom, and all objects disappear without a trace. Then you don't even know where the furnace and cauldron in your spiritual room are. You can't even find your own body. This is the time when heaven enters the earth, and all wonders return to the root. This is solidifying the spirit of the layer of energy. The layer of energy is the outer chakra. Right? That's what he's talking about here. When you make the step and you connect the jumper cables, you do lose a bit. You lose some of the knowledge of the things around you, not to the point where you're going to sleep. You're still awake. You're still aware. You're still doing things, but you're not as aware of them as you were. The furnace and the cauldron, I'm guessing, are the third eye and the sacral, right? You can't even find your own body. You are expressing the will into such a way that you are external from yourself. And that is real. That is what happens, right? You connect these jumper cables, and then the desire flows out of you. It is a consuming thing. That's the time when heaven enters the earth. And yeah, that is the solidifying spirit in the layer of energy, right? The layer of energy is the aura. The solidifying spirit is the manifestation process. That is literally what it's talking about, the solidifying the spirit in the layer of energy. When you first practice turning the light around and your mind gets scattered or distracted, so you want to concentrate it, your six senses are not used. This is called nurturing the root source, adding fuel to continue life. And also when it was talking in the last one about the return, right? That is the toroid, right? You're feeding it out, but it is returning to the crown and the base. Drop my glasses. Once concentration is attained, you are naturally buoyant and do not expend any strength. This is called settling the spirit in the original openness, gathering the primal together. Yes. When even shadows and echoes have all disappeared, and one is highly stabilized in profound tranquility, this is called hibernating in the layer of energy, all wonders returning to the root. It is the same, like it is a continuation of the process. These 3 stages are in each stage. So there are 9 stages in one stage. I take exception to the number 9. I will expound upon that later. For now, I will speak of 3 stages in one. During the nurturing, the initial quieting, gathering is also nurturing. And hibernating is also nurturing. At the end, nurturing is also hibernating. The stage in between can be figured out by analogy. You do not change places, but places are distinguished therein. This is the formless opening, where all places are one place. You do not change times, but times are distinguished therein. This is time without a period, an interval of a world cycle of the original organization. As long as the mind has not reached supreme quiet, it cannot act. Action caused by momentum is random action, not essential action. Therefore, it is said that action influenced by things is human desire, while action uninfluenced by things is the action of heaven. Yes, right? This is the not forcing that we were talking about earlier. Allowing the thing to happen by your direction, but not through your direct forcing. Desiring is one thing, forcing is another. Pushing the energy into something that is not receptive is forcing. Even your chakra can be unreceptive. If your mind does not reach supreme quiet, if you are not properly aligned, if you have not done your visualization exercises, if you have not participated in prayer, fasting, and meditation, if you have not taken the steps to learn the process up to this point, you will be forcing. It is something that almost certainly you are going to do unintentionally, but if you are aware of it, you can take control of that. You can learn to not do that. This does not contrast the action of heaven to the nature of heaven. There is a line missing. After this, I'll explain the word desire. Desire is in considering things to exist or being possessive towards things. This is thought that is out of place, action with an ulterior motive. Nah, not necessarily. You are meant to desire things. It shouldn't be properly aligned things, though. The 8 laws of creation teaches you how to align, right? These things are important, right? Motivation above all things is important in manifestation. If your goal is to manifest money, then you will probably do so, but there will be repercussions. You will probably have to do things that are unsavory. You will probably have to participate in things that you don't want to. If you are doing it with pure intention, according to the 8 laws of creation, you are creating for the betterment of others. And through that process, monetary rewards will come. But the monetary rewards are not your desire. It is not what you are trying to do. What you are trying to do is to manifest the best for everyone, right? However that may be. That should be the alignment there. That is one of the reasons why the laws are important, because the law of returns is a thing. Like the law of one is a thing. The law of response is a real thing. These things will happen if you are not motivated correctly. That's what they mean by desire. Not the, I want to create abundance in my life, right? Well, why are you creating abundance? That makes a difference. Even if you are as simple as simply abundance, without the specificity of $1 million or $100,000 or a job making this much money, even without that specificity, if you are manifesting abundance, then you need to make sure that the abundance is motivated correctly. You are to desire the abundance that is meant for you, but not the abundance that is not meant for you. Don't be jealous. Don't covet other people's things. When not a single thought arises, then true mindfulness is born. This is pure attention. When the celestial potential is suddenly activated in the midst of silent trance, is this not spontaneous attention? This is what is meant by acting without striving. The first 2 lines of the verse at the beginning of this chapter wrap up the function of the golden flower. The next 2 lines refer to the interchange of sun and moon. Midsummer stands for the fire of the trigrammatic Book of Change symbol, fire. The white snow is the true yin within the fire about to return to earth. At midnight is the water of water. The sun is the single yang in the center of water, on the verge of blazing and returning to heaven. Herein lies the operation of spiritual alchemy known as taking from water to fill in fire. The next 2 lines explain the function of the dipper handle, the whole mechanism of rising and descending. Does not in the water refer to water? The eyes, as the breeze of the wind, shine into the chamber of water and beckon the vitality of dominant yang. That is what these lines mean. In the heavens refers to the chamber of the creative, roaming and returning to absorb the virtues of the receptive means nurturing the fire. The last two lines point out the secret within the secret. The secret within the secret cannot be dispensed with from start to finish. This is what is called cleaning the mind, washing the thoughts, which is bathing. The learning of the sages begins with the knowing when to stop and ends with stopping at ultimate good. It begins in the infinite and winds up in the infinite. In Buddhism, activating the mind without dwelling on anything is considered the essential message of the whole canon. In Taoism, affecting openness is the whole work of completing essence in life. In sum, the three teachings are not beyond one saying, which is a spiritual pill that gets one out of death and preserves life. What is the spiritual pill? It just means to be unminding in all situations. The greatest secret in Taoism is bathing. Thus, the whole practice described in this book does not go beyond the words emptiness of mind. It is enough to understand this. This single statement can save decades of seeking. That is, the walking in the oneness. If you do not understand how three stages are included in one, for an analogy, let me use the Buddhist teachings of contemplating emptiness, the conditional, and the center. First is emptiness. You see all things as empty. Next is the conditional. Though you know things are empty, you do not destroy the totality of things, but take a constructive attitude towards all events in the midst of emptiness. Once you neither destroy things nor cling to things, this is the contemplation of the center. When you are practicing the contemplation of emptiness, if you still know that the totality of things cannot be destroyed, and yet do not cling to them, this includes all three contemplations. Since empowerment, after all, means really seeing emptiness, when you cultivate contemplation of emptiness, emptiness is empty. The conditional is also empty, and the center is empty too. In practicing contemplation of the conditional, much of the empowerment is attained in action. So while the conditional is of course conditional, emptiness is also conditional and the center is conditional too. When on the way of the center, you still meditate on emptiness, but you don't call it emptiness. You call it the center. You also meditate on the conditional, but you don't call it the conditional. You call it the center. And when you come to the center, there is no need to say. Although I sometimes speak only of fire, sometimes I also speak of water. Ultimately, they have never moved. With one saying, I open my mouth. The essential mechanism is all in the two eyes. The mechanism means the function. You use this to manage creation. And like I said, there are more than just the two eyes. This does not mean that is all there is to creation. All the faculties of sense and mind are minds of light. So how could we presume to take only the two eyes and not deal with the rest? To use the yang of water, you use the light of fire to illume and absorb it. This shows that the sun and moon are originally one thing. That is the balance. The darkness is the sun, is the vitality of the true moon. The moon cavern is not on the moon, but on the sun. That is why it is called the moon cavern, for otherwise it would be enough to just say the moon. The white of the moon is the light of the true sun. The sunlight being on the moon is what we call the root of heaven. Otherwise it would be enough just to say heaven. When the sun and moon are separated, they are but half. Only when they come together do they form a whole. This is like the case of a single man or a single woman who cannot form a family living alone. Only when there are husband and wife do they amount to a family. But it is hard to represent the way concretely. If a man and a woman are separated, they are still individuals. But if the sun and moon are separated, they do not form a complete whole. What I am saying just brings out the point of communion. So, I do not see duality. You just cling to the separation, so the separation has taken over your eyes. And that's where we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. We are just over an hour, and that is about where I like to keep them because it is easily digestible. We will be coming back to setting up the foundation in 100 days, which is probably going to be the practical application of the things that we have learned. There is a process involved in this, right? It is not something that is natural. It is not something you are just going to randomly come upon. You have to spend the time and invest yourself in it. You have to do the prayer, fasting, and meditation. There is nothing that is going to separate that from you. You really need to be doing physical exercise, and not just what you do during work, but exercise devoted to making your body healthier. It can be walking. Walking is a wonderful exercise. I did walking exclusively for 3 years. Right? I am into the 4th year, and I am experimenting with more these days. But for the first 3 years, it allowed my body to rehabilitate itself into such a way that I could even do these things. You can do them if you are misaligned. You can do them if you are not in good health or even trying to be. You can do them without prayer, fasting, and meditation. But if you skip any of those steps, it's going to hurt you. You are not going to be properly aligned if you are sedentary. You are not going to be properly aligned if you are not fasting. Proper alignment is important to taking control of these things. You will not be able to achieve control for a while. It takes practice. It is a muscle that you are learning to use. It will be painful at times to learn to use this muscle. But it is a natural muscle. In the same way that you can train for a marathon or you can train to lift weights, you can train to do this. These processes that we are aligning and that hopefully I am clarifying are how you do it. The as above, so below, that's a very real maxim. You must be in alignment with your base desires and your spiritual desires in order to manifest into your life correctly. If you are only using your eyes, you are going to manifest only the things of the spiritual nature. If you are only using your sacral, you are going to manifest the things that are only of the base. It is the balance between the two that you need to achieve. Between the yin and the yang, between the light and the dark, between the positive and the negative, between the penetrative and the grounding. Maintaining the balance is important. Finding the balance is important. Learning to achieve the balance is important. That is true for every single step along the way. Every single point in your stack, you need to balance. Whether it is your base sacral or whether it is your SIFE. However it is that you need to find the balance, you need to find the balance. That is part of the process just as much as sitting down and doing the meditation, getting your breathing right, learning to recognize the light, grabbing hold to it and creating reality. These are all steps in a process, and you can't skip them. Like you can jump over the intentions and it will bite you in the ass. I'm trying to keep you from getting the bite. I don't want you to get hurt. I give you the laws, I give them freely. Right? They were given to me freely. I don't own them. I turn them loose. I set them free into the internet so that whoever has the will and the desire can do these things. But please, before you do any of these things, make sure that you are taking the time to do them correctly. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a set of somewhat difficult topics. I understand that I hold some unconventional beliefs and I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those beliefs. It is not intentional, but I do not apologize for it. I am here on a mission and I will accomplish it. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment. Let me know if you agree or disagree. If it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. And if there is something that you would like to see me explain in the same manner that I'm doing here, leave it in the box down below as well. If you really like what I'm doing over here, hit me with that super thanks because I do not manifest money to the crew. Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt's Take. Peace.